The Good Life for Dogs. I'm Andrea Schneider, 9-year breast cancer thriver and survivor, and I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Lee Harris, the wonderful author of The Good Life for Dogs. So Dr. Harris is a veterinarian for 40 years, and so after 40 years, Dr. Harris, why did you decide to write a book about lifestyle and health for our doggy friends?
Well, Andrea, I spent most of my life trying to fix the problems of dogs. And in the meantime, I learned a lot about diet and exercise and people's relationship with their dogs and behavior. Now my focus is really on how do we keep them from being sick? How do we make life more enjoyable for our dogs and for the people who own them? And so this takes you into all the lifestyle sorts of things, exercise and diet and training. And this is true in people too. This is my big concern, is that in people, more than half of our healthcare costs have to do with lifestyle related things and mental health. And so if we can get at the things that lead to these problems, we can really make life better for everybody.
And I totally agree with you, Dr. Harris. And in reading your book, I sometimes would be thinking, oh my gosh, is he talking about people or dogs? Because it seems so intertwined, the message that you have and that you share. And I think you are so on point of prevention, whether it's for dogs and or humans, hopefully for both. So
in fact, the structure that I was using comes from Aristotle, who his idea of the good life was to feel good, do good, and be good. And so I try to translate that into what would that look like for a dog.
And so how can we tell what's going on internally with our dogs, what our dogs are experiencing?
Well, there was a time when we didn't give credit that dogs would actually be conscious beings and have feelings and emotions and so forth. And neurologists tell us now that we have every reason to think that they are conscious, perhaps in a different way than us. But we also have ways to measure that. We can measure a cortisol level in the saliva to tell, are they stressed? We can measure the variability of the heart rate to tell if they're content. We can measure oxytocin levels to see how they feel about us and we feel about them. And by using all these physical techniques, we can really get at what dogs are feeling internally. For instance, with a heart monitor, they can measure what's called heart rate variability, which we know applies to stress and contentment. And we can tell if we look at the dog in a certain way, or if we pet them in different areas, we get different responses that way. So we can tell from a scientific perspective, how are they feeling based on physical things, as well as our intuitive, that they seem to be having a good time.
Yeah, and I didn't really realize all the things that you're saying, the chemicals and stuff, but I have 2 dogs. You've met one of them, Rosy, my husky, and my little one, Bella Shih Tzu poodle. I just got her groomed a couple of days ago. And you know what? She would not go outside for about 5 days. She was too self-conscious about how she looked. She finally today would go out. So, I mean, if you tell that to someone who doesn't own a dog, they probably think you're a nut, but we know when you have a dog, they really do communicate in various ways.
Yes, and now that they have better ways of doing brain scans and so forth, and if you have a dog who acts embarrassed and the same part of his brain lights up as lights up in a person who says, I feel embarrassed, then it's pretty hard to say that there's something basically different going on. And I think most neurologists have accepted that this is, they feel things in this similar ways to us, perhaps not exactly the same, but absolutely.
Interesting. So you start each chapter with a story about a dog, and I really liked reading about the little dogs that you mentioned, and I could picture some of them, especially your childhood dog had gone blind and knew its way around the house. And so were these actually patients of yours, these different dogs?
Every one of these was a real patient that comes to mind when I think about weight loss or I think about training. These are the dogs I think about. I've changed their names of my clients' dogs. My own dogs, I've left their names. But these are real dogs with real issues, and those are not, I probably have a dozen dogs that would have similar things, but these are individual dogs that I met and I loved from my years in practice.
And I could tell that by reading about them. So thank you so much, Dr. Harris. You're a wealth of information. How are people going to find you and your book? And then, of course, I'm going to put it down below in the description in this video in case they don't have a pen to write it. But how will they find you, Dr. Harris?
Yeah. My book is The Good Life for Dogs. The subtitle is Health, Lifestyle, Happiness, and Meaning, which sums it up. It's available on Amazon.com and any of the e-reader services, Nook and Kindle and so forth.
And then they can also find you on Facebook under the same title.
Facebook, and we have a website called Good Life for Dogs.
Very good. Very good. And I'd highly recommend that you read this book. It really is quite valuable. Think about what you can be doing for your dog and for yourself. So thanks so much for being here today with us, Dr. Harris, and I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Good to talk, Andrea.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.